Hi there. My name is Ash Kaluarachchi. I'm one of the co-founders at StartEd and producer at EdTech Week. I got my start at a company called Techstars, building the Kaplan EdTech Accelerator. And I went on to create accelerators for Intel, University, and I founded StartEd in 2015. StartEd is a company I founded with some exited entrepreneurs in the space with the goal of attracting and developing an army of education innovators to solve the world's largest challenges. What we've effectively done since we founded the company is create an environment that is a little bit better than the post-secondary experience that we had as innovators, and therefore looks more like what we wished the real world looks like, i.e. 5-day boot camps, we call them hyper accelerators, that expose you to the experience of a network of around 500 investors, entrepreneurs, and educators in the space with the goal of transforming your company. The other thing that we've created is EdTech Week. So that's a festival. It's a networking and distance learning event that brings together a few thousand investors, educators, and entrepreneurs to problem solve together. We had to reinvent amid COVID what that actually looks and feels like, because we can't do the same thing online that we do in person and expect the same results. So therefore, that week at EdTech Week looks and feels more like a series of masterclasses, think tanks, and shark tanks than sages on stages. But the goal there is to allow innovators to have the community, the industry come around them, be made aware of them, and support them through investment advice and mentorship. What I'm here to talk about today is something that we as entrepreneurs tend to deal with on a daily basis, and that's how to effectively present ourselves. And while this does feed into your pitch and your positioning, what I'm talking about is something far more fundamental. I'm talking about how do you explain your life's passion in a succinct and effective way so that the relevant individuals that you're connected with can support that mission and vision, right? Now, it is something that in my experience, most entrepreneurs, regardless of their stage and experience, don't do effectively because it's not necessarily a muscle that we tend to think of. And like a muscle that we don't think of, we don't tend to exercise it, and therefore it doesn't develop. So thinking purposefully about that entrepreneur's toolkit of creating a finely defined 30-second, 90-second, and or longer way to present yourself as an organization with or without support, right? And support in the form of a pitch deck or an investor deck is a good way to start building this entrepreneur toolkit that I mentioned earlier. It is true that in a virtual environment, our attention has gotten a little bit worse. And in our research, we found that 90 seconds is probably all you have when you're presenting to anyone in a virtual environment to make an impact and be heard and be understood and remembered. And it is possible to actually present yourself within that time frame to effectively allow someone to vote with their feet and approach you to support your mission. That's primarily what we do at StartEd when we start working with companies in the context of our accelerator. I'll talk a little bit about where we tend to focus that time when we're honing that positioning and presentation. And it is really around the problem, right? Now, most elements of a company, descriptions of a company can be broken down into the 4 Ps. And those 4 Ps in descending order of importance are the people, the problem, the progress, and finally the product. Now, us as entrepreneurs tend to fall in love with our products, but that's actually not what people are attracted to and engage with and remember. They tend to really attract and be engaged to the people and the problem. So if you want to activate people for the purposes of furthering your mission and goals, focusing on the problem and telling people why you as a person are the best person to solve that problem is an effective initial way to introduce yourselves. Now, let's mainly provide a few other examples of how to break that down a little bit. In framing a problem, talking about who you're solving a problem for, the customers or users, talking about the pain point you're actually solving, or accordingly the market that you're actually tackling, is an effective way to kind of frame the scale of the problem that you're trying to solve. Similarly, talking about the people, we tend to ignore the fact that we've been focusing on this passion and mission for a long time. We tend to discount the fact that our teams are uniquely aligned and are also equally passionate about solving this problem, and how their experience solves the problem and aligns with that vision. So in my experience, spending 80% of your time talking about the experience that you have and why you're focusing on this, as well as framing the problem in a compelling way, tends to be an effective way to have a second conversation, right? If I were to boil it down to one sentence, I would say that if you are able to communicate and give the impression that you are the #1 expert on this problem in the world, you will have no problem attracting the funding, the talent, the partners that you hope to bring on to achieve your mission. Right? Aside from the 4 Ps, let's break down that problem even further. Most problems tend to focus in education around something I like to call the 3 A's. So those are problems around achievement, access, and affordability. Most education problems in the world tend to align with one or more of these areas. And the most common mistake that entrepreneurs make is assuming they're solving an affordability challenge, i.e. making something cheaper than the existing options, when they're actually solving a problem of access, getting people exposure and access to some resource, whether it be financial, mentorship, or otherwise, that they didn't have before. So I would spend some time introspecting and trying to understand whether you're truly solving a problem that you think you are solving. Again, those areas are achievement, access, and affordability. That concludes my time with you, but I hope that you'll spend a little bit of time getting to know our community here at Amazon's EdStart, as well as at StartEd. If you wanted to check it out, that's started.com. And if you want to join us at EdTech Week, that's at edtechweek.com. I'm Ash Kaluarachchi, and thank you for taking the time to listen.